Okay, guys, today we are going to talk about getting a gig as a costume designer. A lot of this information applies to getting work in theater in general. So even if costume design isn't necessarily your thing, hopefully you'll get something useful out of this, whether you are going into tech, or if you're designing in another area, or if you want to do wardrobe. This is kind of universal advice. Key to getting a job in theater is managing self-presentation, how you're going to put yourself out into the world. So how do you present your best self? What aspects of yourself do you prioritize? What's the most important thing that you want to share with potential employers? And what tools do you have to put that information out there for other people to see so that they can know who you are and what you can do? So for self-presentation, there are three primary tools for sort of getting yourself out there and getting information about yourself out there. And in this video, we're going to focus on the first, but the three biggest tools are your resume, your portfolio, and your network, which will also include your references. The resume is going to be a living document. You will be revising your resume throughout your career because what you do and what's going to be included will always be changing. But in general, resumes should highlight your experience. It should be really clear after looking at a resume what you've done, what experiences you've had. It should also give some information about networks. Theater is a tiny little industry. Shows and schools and companies have reputations, so they know what to expect. Oh, you went to YSU. We expect this, this, and this from you. You worked at Cedar Point. We expect this, this, and this, because those companies are known. So it wants to, resume should highlight your experience, also show your networks. It does, however, need to be concise. If it is more than a page, they aren't going to read it. So it needs to be short. It also needs to highlight you. You should be the center of attention on your resume. You want to make your work, your experience, your skills the center. You don't want them being distracted by lots of frou-frou nonsense graphics or overly spread references, so it should be like, nope, I'm the star of this document. Also, super important, have good contact info on your resume. Worst possible thing is if you've got a typo or something funky and they try to reach you and they can't get you. Resumes should not include every single little thing that you've done, because there's going to be irrelevant experience. There's going to be experience that might counter the impression that you're trying to present. It just might be irrelevant. More is not better. More is sometimes more. This goes into that whole be concise. Guys, I've been doing this a lot longer than you, and my resume is still one page, front only. Okay, we're going to see it later this video. You also want your resume to be organized. Sloppy, unorganized resumes are hard to read, and if it takes effort to figure out what's on a resume, you're like, I don't know what this means, or it's confusing, they're not going to bother. They're just going to be like, nope, move to the next one. This one's a mess. So it can't be a mess. It needs to be clean. Also, be honest. Present yourself in a truthful manner. Do not exaggerate your role. Do not give yourself a title you did not have. Don't say that you worked or did something that you didn't do. In the end, you might get away with it once, but in the end, you will be caught. And once you build a reputation, you're going to get blackballed. It will hurt you in the end. You will lose references. You will lose jobs Do not lie on your resume. So when it comes to resumes, there's different ways to lay it out. There's more than one acceptable layout. Again, as long as it is clear, concise, and organized, you're in a good place. You also want to be prepared to have multiple resumes because you want to sort of tailor the resume to the job at hand. I very often will, and we're going to talk about this, I often organize my experience in sections. So if I'm applying for a costume shop manager job or a craft person job, I'm going to put all of my construction, tech, and craft stuff first and put my design stuff later because that's the stuff that's relevant to the job at hand. So I've got multiple things. I've got a pile of resumes. Adjust your resume for the job you're applying for. In general, no matter what job you're applying for, there's going to be standard sections for a resume. First, you have your contact info. You've got to list your education. You want to list your relevant experience. You may include your skills, may or may not, it depends. And also references, so standard sections. So in the contact info, this should be the first thing on your resume. You want to have your name, and your name is where you kind of get to have a little bit of fun. Find a cool font that's legible. Find a cool font where your name looks good, and this is going to be the biggest thing on your resume. You want to see, this is my name right there. There's a name. So you want your name, and then different ways that they can contact you. Your email, your phone, your physical address. You're like, they're not going to send me mail. They will often make choices based on physical location. If they're like, they're too far away, or, oh, they're a local person, that can make a sway. All right. If you have, and you should have, an online digital portfolio or website, you should include a link in your header info. Next, or elsewhere, because again, you can move these sections around. You've got your credentialing, the yes, I have been taught how to do stuff section. And particularly for young artists, this is going to be one of the first things because, I'm coming out of a program of study. So under education, you want to include your degree that is earned or in process. You want to have dates. So when you start, when you finish, or if you're current. If you've got a relevant minor, like we've got a couple TCOM minors or studio art minors or communication, all of those, include your minor info too, because it could be useful. If you've taken some specific courses, so for example, you've taken costume construction or stage makeup or stage management, even if you've not had a participation assignment, you've had that coursework and that training, and so this is a good place to include it. In general, you don't need high school. If you went to a performing arts high school, maybe, but I wouldn't worry about it. Next, you've got your experience. And this is the section where you can do a lot of different formats and adjust it different ways to highlight things. Now, sometimes people just go straight chronology. They're going to put everything in one section and then just put all the jobs that they've done. At this point in your careers, this is a really good option because you might not have enough stuff to split it into sections without it kind of looking too scattered. But if, say, you are going for lighting design and you've got 5 designs, put lighting design in a section and then put other jobs, other experience, related experience in a separate section if you've got a lot of experience in one area. If you've done a lot of wardrobe or if you've worked in the costume shop a lot, that's a great thing to put. Technical costume experience, things like that. Once you're in a section, then you put it in chronological order. and you want the newest first and then go backwards, because they're going to care more about the stuff that is more recent than what you did 5 years ago. So at this stage in your career, high school is fine. Include high school shows, absolutely, because they're still kind of within that 10-year window. So also make sure you include dates and locations. Dates, locations, who you worked with. So you can give all of that information. Skills can be, I kind of consider a skills an optional section, especially if you don't necessarily have a job title or a specific thing to highlight you have a skill. So if you do fine art, or if you've done a lot of puppets, or if you do carpentry, you know, that's, you can put it in the skills section because you've got that. If you have a valid driver's license, it becomes a thing, especially with New York. Include that, right? But don't feel the need, again, to put in every skill you have, because remember, you have one page, we want to be concise. I can sing, you know, Ik wünsche ik wäre ein Oscar Mayer Würstel. Nobody cares. Maybe you care. It's a lovely song. So, the last section that you're going to add, because references live on the bottom. References, before you put someone on your resume that you're sending out, contact them. Talk to them. Are you okay being a reference? If they said yes before, that doesn't necessarily mean they're still going to say yes now. Circumstances change. Make sure every time before you send out a bunch of applications that your references are still available and willing to be your reference. You do not want them to be surprised by a phone call, because then you don't know what you're going to get. All right? As a rule, do not put references available on request. The only exception to that, I think, is if you are posting a resume on a website where it is kind of there for anybody to access, and you don't want to be putting up people's contact information on the internet where it's just kind of sitting there out in the wild. But if you are sending a resume to an employer in an application, they already want your resume. They already want your references, right? Don't make them do an extra request for references. You're applying for a job. When it comes to references, you want 3. No more, no less. 3. It might be wise to have more than 3 references you can contact, right? But on your resume, no more than 3. They're not going to contact more than 3. They're going to be like, who is this joker going all extra with 5 references? I'm not contacting 5 references. But you might change up your references based on where you're applying. So, for example, if I'm applying for a job in Pittsburgh, I have some references that are very active in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to use my people that are super active in the Pittsburgh theatrical community in a way that I wouldn't if I was applying for a job in New England or in Indiana, because, you know, sometimes the names carry different weight. In terms of visual space, references should take up no more than about 10-12% of your resume down at the bottom. If they, you know, you want to be very, very concise. So here is a sample resume. You might recognize this resume. So this is my current resume. Well, actually, it's out of date. I need to update. So, and I need to purge. So I'm going to follow my own rules and get rid of some old stuff. But here you can see it starts off with my name, biggest thing on the resume, who I am, what I do. I do costume design and technology, right? Contact info, so address, email, phone number, portfolio, all of them are right there. My education, I've got enough stuff elsewhere on the resume. I'm not including my classes, but I do point out years that I went to school, where I went to school, what degree I got. If you've got a big fancy award, include a big, you know, if you graduate, you know, summa cum laude, magna, you know, if you've got a bunch of dean's lists, yeah, show off, because remember, your resume is for showing off. And I have broken up my experience into a couple different sections, and the bulk of my resume is my experience. So I've even broken up costume design into multiple areas. This is in part because I've spent close to a decade working primarily as a residential designer. And so at IUP and at YSU, I was the designer in residence, which meant I was doing a lot of shows in the same place, basically with the same people. And so I'm just listing those in a group versus my freelance design where I'm working with different people in different theaters. I love columns. I can go on a whole thing about how much I love things that line up and are real clean, but I've got my dates, I got the show that I did, I have the director, I have the company I worked for. Down below the freelance design, I do include some of my assistant designs, and rather than listing the director, I put a little note and I list the costume designers I assisted because they were my more direct supervisor, basically. And I've got different costume technology ones. I list my title, where I worked, things like that. But if you look, my references, I have 3, and they take up just a little section of the resume. Here's another sample resume that I found on the internet. And here you can see, once again, her name is the biggest thing on there. She's got her title. She's a costume designer. That's what she wants to do. Some people will be like, oh, you need to put an objective. Objectives are bullshit, okay? Just put the title that you are and what you do. Don't make a whole special. To seek a job in costume design. No one cares. It's bullshit. Don't waste your time. Education. Again, she listed where she went, what she's doing, what degree she's earning. Here she's got expected graduation, so an expected date, even though she's still in progress. And she split her stuff up in areas. So she's got design first because she wants to do design. So she's got design first, and then assistant design, which is sort of that level below, and then her other relevant experience. Then she's got some related skills, and again, references are relatively low profile. Here's a different layout. Once again, his main thing right there, name on top, biggest thing, see it first, right? Technical experience, so he focuses more because I think he's mostly looking for tech jobs at this point in his career. So all of his technical and stitching jobs are first, and then his design. He also includes some awards that he's won, which is great. You know, if you've won a scholarship, if you've won something from KCACTF, include that. Once again, references are very low profile. And I may have skipped this, but I'm just going to have this note. When you are editing your resume, you're doing your resume in your word processor, right? You're laying it all out. That's great. But when you go to send your resume, okay, you want to save your file as a PDF, all right? Save it as a PDF. Do not save it as a, do not send a doc file or a pages file, so no system or program specific file. What's going to happen if it's .pages, anybody running a Windows system won't be able to open it. If it's a docx file, if they open it and don't have the exact presets that you do, all of your work doing layout is fakakta. It's gone. So those Word files or those pages files are not good for sending. A PDF, all of your formatting, all of your fonts are going to be preserved, and they're going to go through intact, and they can be opened on any computer. Also, when you send a file, send it not just as resume, because employers are going to have 15 files, resume.pdf. Do it last name resume.pdf. Maybe I had talked about that in a different PowerPoint. I don't know, but we're hitting 20 minutes, so we're going to call this good. So see you in the next video.